sow your mustard seed, to sow what you have. And just this morning, as I speak, and as I bring this word that I think God's given me, maybe I should sow my faith mustard seed into this message. As I bring this word that God's given me, I really just think that there's a call for some people to really sow your mustard seed, so that whatever faith you have into believing that God is so for you. God is powerful to change and transform a life, no matter whether you believe that and whether you believe that God can do that. Just sow that mustard seed of faith into that situation. Man, that is really green. Would you? It's yellow then. Never mind. We'll work with it. So this week I stumbled across this video about a series of kind of banned baby names. So in New Zealand, it turns out there are things that you can't name your kid. What is most bizarre about this list? I've got a list of my favourite names, okay? And it was great because I can count this towards sermon preparation and not procrastination. But what's great about this list is that presumably there was someone in Internal Affairs who gets these forms with a proposed baby name on it and goes, wait a minute, we should probably do something about this. So people tried to call their kids, firstly, Lucifer. And I think there's been 6 instances of people wanting to call their kid that, which I guess, it means bringer of light or morning star or whatever, but there has been some other meaning imbued upon that name since its original use. So not a good idea. Sam and Emily, I hope you're taking notes of what you can't call your kid. Secondly, violence. I just don't... Anyway. Thirdly, this one's hilarious. I know, year Detroit. Hey, year Detroit, come in. It's inside time for dinner, year Detroit. Bizarre. This one's hilarious. Number 16 bus shelter. I'll let you put the dots together as to how the baby tried to get that name. You can't call your kid any kind of punctuation. There will be no little full stops, no little commas, no little apostrophes running around church. I hope, Emily. Or, like you need to be told, any kind of illicit drug. So no little methamphetamines either. No, bizarre. But my favourite, by far, and this is tragic, because this next name, a child actually got called this name, and a court had to step in, remove her from the situation in order to be able to change her name, which is bizarre. But here we go. It's my absolute favourite name. Tallulah does the hula from Hawaii, which I presume is just her first name. So it's probably Tallulah does the hula from Hawaii Smith. Bizarre. Just bizarre, it just blew my mind. Anyway, so as a parent, I think you agonise over the name that you're going to call your child, because this is the first thing you do that really affects and impacts their identity, their sense of who they are and their future. And so you spend time agonising over what you're going to call your kid. We agonised over Samuel's middle name because we had his first name, which means God has heard or God hears. We had his first name before he was born, but his middle name was really hard because we were torn between wanting to keep a family name but wanting to have a name that had real meaning. So the family name is Bruce. Get in behind, Bruce. Yeah, it's a family name, so it's good. But we also wanted them to have a name that meant something. So that meant something. I'm sure Bruce means something. It's just, I don't know what it is. And so his other middle name is Nathaniel, which means a gift of God. So we agonise over what we're going to call our kids. We want those names to be imbued with meaning. that kind of carries them through. And our names are really wrapped up in identity. A person becomes their name. When I call your name, I'm calling you. When I say your name, I'm wrapping up everything you are into this one little word. And so names have this incredible power to affect our identity, to affect who we are. And sometimes parents get it wrong, and so people actually are able to change their names later in life if they decide that they don't like the name that their parent gave them, like poor Tallulah. Or if they feel like they need a fresh start and a new future. And my dad he grew up and was raised as Leslie O'Rourke. So we could have been O'Rourke's, Sarah and Michael O'Rourke. But after he separated from his first wife, he kind of did a bit of a runner and came down to the South Island and changed his name to Bruce Wilson. So we can change our names if we feel our parents didn't do a good job and that name doesn't encapsulate who we are. It doesn't encapsulate our identity and how we think of ourselves. And we can change our names when we want a fresh start and a new change. And the Bible actually speaks to this. The Bible speaks to this phenomenon. And at certain crossroads, at certain points in characters' lives in the Bible, God steps in and changes their name and changes their future. And first off, in Genesis chapter 17, God calls this man Abram. And Abram, he calls him out of his family, out of his land, and says, Abram, follow me, and I will take you to a land that you have not yet seen. And I'm going to make you a great nation. I'm going to make you the father of countless people. So Abram's name means honoured father, which is a bit embarrassing when you're 99 years old and you don't have any kids. So that's a point of shame for Abram. His name means honoured father or exalted father, and he has no kids. So God speaks to him at his point of shame, at his point of embarrassment, calls him out of his situation, and gives him a new name, Abraham, which means father of nations or father of many. It's this weird situation where God steps in, and at the point of Abraham's shame and embarrassment, God brings blessing and honour. And last week Steve talked about our tendency to hide away those things that we can't bear to feel. Steve talked about those points of shame, things that we want to hide from other people because we're embarrassed when they see it. But Steve said, the biblical principle is to actually expose that and see God turn that into something beautiful, into something amazing, into something transformative, to expose it. So at the point of Abraham's embarrassment, at the point of his shame, God steps in and redeems it. So if our name is tied up with our sense of identity, our sense of who we are, God has the power to change our name. So the second story going through the Bible. Whoa. Okay, right, okay, that's me. So the second story is the story of Jacob, and God changes Jacob's name to Israel. And so if you don't know the story of Jacob and Esau, Jacob was the son of Isaac. I hope I got that right. Jacob and Esau were twins, and Esau was the oldest twin, and he came out first, and the Bible describes him as red and hairy, hence, the Almo. And Jacob came out grasping his heel. And so in the context and the time that this took place, the oldest son inherits the majority of the father's estate. And so Esau was entitled to take his eldest share, and Jacob comes out grasping his heel and is this kind of really a deceptive, greedy, double-handed, double-crossing sort of figure in the Bible, and we celebrate him. There's a real dark side to Jacob. His name actually means supplanter, which I guess you probably should be on that list of things that you shouldn't call your kids if you don't want them to grow up to be double-handed and double-crossing and a bit sneaky. So Jacob grows up, and his whole goal is to kind of take what is Esau's. And so Esau goes out hunting one day, and he's hungry when he gets back. And so Jacob says to him, look, I will give you this pot of lentil stew, which sounds delicious, if you give me your birthright. And Esau, hungry and a bit simple, agrees to this and hands over what was rightfully his to Jacob. There's this pattern in Jacob's life where he takes what he wants by deceptive means. His name is a deception. His name is deceptive. His identity is tied up in being this person that is underhanded and double-crossing. And eventually he has to run away because Esau is so angry with him. And he runs and he raises a family and he lives a life. And he hears that Esau is coming to him. And Esau is coming with men and soldiers. And he's understandably a bit freaked out. And so he packs up his family and he packs up his servants and he goes out to meet Esau. And he sends his servants across this river when he sees Esau. He sends his servants across with gifts, like one at a time, like each bringing gifts to Esau. So that by the time that Esau meets Jacob, he's I guess either happy to see him or just like encumbered by presents that he can't actually do anything. And so it's at this point where Jacob has sent over his servants with gifts. Now, Jacob camps up for the night before he meets Esau, and he wrestles with God. He has this encounter with God. And while he's staying at this place, he has a dream, and in this dream an angel comes and wrestles with him till daybreak. And Jacob can't beat this angel, and the angel can't beat Jacob, and they're at this stalemate, and in the end the angel kind of dislocates his hip and says to him, release me. And Jacob says, I won't let you go until you bless me. I won't let you go until you bless me. And the angel says, what's your name? What's your name? So an encounter with God will change your life. Jacob encounters God at this place before he meets his brother, and God dislocates his hip, which is, I guess, battling sneaky with sneaky. But Jacob carried that limp with him for the rest of his life. Jacob encounters God and is forever changed. And to mark this change, he refuses to let... Wow. If we could just have the next slide, please. Jacob says to the angel, I will not let you go until you bless me. I'm going to hold on, and I'm going to hold on tight, and I don't care if it takes all night, I don't care if it takes all week, I don't care if it takes all year, I am not letting you go until you bless me, until you change my identity, until you change my name, until you change who I am. It can take a year, but I'm still holding on and not letting you go until you change my circumstances. It's this recognition that actually we can't do anything to change our circumstances. We can't do anything to change our nature necessarily. We need someone to step in and rescue us from the identity that's built up around us. That identity that's built up through words that people have spoken to us, through our experience in the world, as kids, our parents, the words that have been spoken to us at school, words that we have spoken to ourselves to say who we are, names that we've lived under. And we can't positively think our way out of our circumstances. Those things that define us but that we wish didn't. We can't, by sheer force of will, become something other than what we are. It's like with Tallulah does the hula from Hawaii, we need someone to step in and say, this isn't who you are. This isn't who you are. And to remove us from that situation and put us in a place where we can experience change and transformation, and someone to speak a different word over our lives, and someone to give us a new name, someone to give us a new identity. And then the angel says to Jacob, what is your name? What is your name? And Jacob says, My name is supplanter. My name is deceptive. My name is tricky. My name is underhanded and deceptive. And the angel says, no longer. No longer. Now you are Israel, and Israel means overcomer, or he who has fought with God and prevailed. He who has fought with God and man and prevailed. And so there's this experience where Jacob wrestles with this angel and he refuses to let him go until this angel blesses him. And the angel is God. I'm using them interchangeably. Don't be confused. He refuses to let him go till he blesses him. And the way that he's blessed is the angel gives him a new name. Now, name is tied up in our identity. Who we are is encapsulated in this one word. When I think of people here, I think of their name, and their name fits who they are. Bart is Bart, he's not Billy or Bob. Samuel, I don't call him anything else. I call him Stinky Bum Pants and Chubby Monkey Face. But Samuel is Samuel. When I look at him, that's his name. His name and his identity are the same thing. What name have we been wearing? What name have we taken on that isn't the name that God would give us? It isn't the name of God that God would give us. And so it's in the point of, it's in the struggle that God intervenes and changes Jacob's nature. With Abram, it was in the point of his shame and in the point of his embarrassment that God steps in and changes his future. With Jacob, it's in the struggle, it's in the fight, it's in the wrestling with life, with decisions that we've made, with the circumstances that we face. It's in the midst of that struggle and that fight that God steps in and gives us a new identity and a new name. And gives us a name that enables us, it empowers us to be stronger than whatever it is that we're facing. Jacob goes on to meet Esau, and because of this encounter, where his character and his identity are changed along with his name, because of this, he meets Esau and there's reconciliation and forgiveness and freedom and life and love and liberty. God has the power to step in, to change names, to change identities, and to change circumstances. The third story we find in Matthew 16, verses 13 to 20. And Jesus and the disciples had come to this place, Caesarea Philippi, and they set up, and Jesus turns to his disciples and says, who do people say that I am? And his disciples say, some people say that you are John the Baptist. Some people say that you're Elijah, and some people say that you're Jeremiah or one of the other prophets. And Jesus turns to them and says, well, who do you say that I am? And Peter looks at him. And says, you are the Messiah, the Son of God. And Jesus says to him, look, you don't say that because you know it. You say that because God has revealed it to you. And on that revelation, I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. Amazing. Jesus takes them to this place, Caesarea Philippi. Sits at the base of a cliff. And in the bottom of this cliff, there's a cave where a stream came out of. Caesarea Philippi was a city that worshipped the god Pan. Pan's sort of the party god in Greek mythology. And this cave and this stream were seen as the place by which... So the gods during winter, and this is a bit of schooling, the gods during winter would live underground. They would live in the underground, in Hades, in hell. And this cave and this stream were seen as the way that the gods would come out at spring and live in the world again. And Caesarea Philippi was like the red light district. It was like Amsterdam. Yeah. It was like the red light district of the ancient Near East. And so Jesus takes them to this place that was full of sin, full of debauchery, full of prostitution, and full of pain and suffering, and asks them who he thinks he is. who they think he is. And Peter looks at him and says, in contrast with this world of sin and debauchery, Peter looks at Jesus and it's like the penny drops. He goes, oh, I get it. You're the Messiah. You're the Son of God. You're the one that was coming. And Jesus says to him, what does he say after that? He goes, yes, on that revelation, I will build my church and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. And whenever I used to hear that, I used to hear it as the church would be strong and hell would fight against it and hell wouldn't win. But gates don't fight, right? So gates exist for one purpose, and that is to protect things inside it. So Jesus is actually saying, is on this revelation, on this confession, your confession of who I am, I'm going to build my church, and the church is going to be aggressive. It's not going to be passive. The church is going to batter and beat down the gates of hell. The church is going to be a group of people who are inspired and passionate about who I am. It's going to be a group of people who have a revelation of who I am, who are going to break down the gates of hell and go in there and save souls. Who are going to go in there and beat hell and bring the kingdom. But like, can you picture it? These are fishermen. These are fishermen. These are people who don't have it together, but they get who Jesus is. They confess it out loud, and at that moment, Jesus gives Simon a new name. At that moment, Jesus gives Simon a new name, and he says, you are Peter, you are rock, or little rock. And on this revelation, I will build my church. And this picture of a church that is mighty and powerful to beat hell. This church that is on the front foot, out there, bringing the kingdom into dark places. The story takes place like on the border of the darkest place around. And it's at this point that Jesus says, here, this is what I want you to be doing as a church. I change your name, I change your nature from just a simple fisherman, timid, didn't quite get what was going on, to people who are equipped to beat down the gates of hell. And it's at this point of revelation and at the point of Peter's confession, importantly, that God transforms him into a powerhouse. It's worthwhile to note that all these other voices have opinions of who Jesus is. All these other voices have opinions of who we are. All these other voices speak words and names and identities over us. The important one is the one that God drops into your spirit. The important one is the one that God reveals and drops into our spirits. And we need that revelation to settle in our spirits of not just who Jesus is, but who we are as well. Stripped of the names and expectations of who other people think we are. So finally, it's in the revelation. It's in the revelation that God can change identities and change names. Can I have the next one, please? So firstly, at the point of Abram's embarrassment and shame, God brings blessing and honour. I don't know if you're here this morning and there's something that you're embarrassed for people to see. There's something that's a point of shame in your life that you want to keep hidden, that you can't bear to have people be a part of. And I want to say that this morning, if we don't do anything about that, that becomes your identity. That wraps up and becomes a name that you wear, a name that defines you. And I want to say that at that point, it's at that point that God wants to redeem it, God wants to transform it and change it and make your name out of that something even greater, something even more transformative, more blessed, more honourable than you could have imagined. Can I get Shani up on the keys? And with Jacob, we see that at the point of his greatest struggle, God changes Jacob's character and his future. I don't know what life you've brought in with you this morning. I don't know what struggles, what wrestling, what pain, what fights you're carrying with you this morning. Every one of us has lived, like this room is a culmination of 50 lives that have come together, and each of those lives are different. Each of our walks this week have been different. We're all carrying different things, and I don't know what they are, but I want you to know that at the point of your struggle, there is an encounter with God waiting to happen. There's an encounter with God waiting to transform you, to give you a new name, to give you a new identity, to equip you to win this battle. The great thing about the Jacob story is that in chapter 32, God changes his name to Israel. In chapter 35, he has to do it again. In chapter 35, God needs to sit down with Jacob and say, you're no longer Jacob, you're Israel. We pick things up again when we put them down. We pick things up again when we put them down. And God needed to take Jacob aside and remind him that this isn't you. Jacob and his family needed to put aside their idols to other gods again. They'd picked up things. Jacob had had this encounter with God that was incredible. He wrestled with an angel of the Lord, had his hip dislocated, carries this mark of an encounter with God for the rest of his life, and still picks up the way of living like Jacob, which I find really encouraging because I do that pretty much daily. I've encountered God. It doesn't stop me picking up my old life and walking with it again. So God takes him aside and reminds him, you're living like Jacob. You're Jacob again, but who are you? You're Israel. You're Israel. You're better than this. You're bigger than this. You're greater than this. You're Israel, not Jacob. Wear that name, which is great because there's not just one opportunity for us to grasp an encounter with God. There's not just one opportunity for us to have our identity and our nature changed to equip us for what we're going through. There is opportunity on opportunity, and this morning I believe that God is offering that opportunity again. So I don't know what life you've brought with you this morning, what struggles you have, but know that there is an encounter with God waiting to happen in the midst of it. You don't have to wait for it to be over to encounter God. You're not going through it because you didn't encounter God before. It's right now in the midst of this struggle that you are able to encounter God. And thirdly, as we saw with Peter, it's at the point of God's revelation. And I want to say that it's at the point of God's revelation, but that's not enough. It's at the point of Peter's confession of God's revelation that God transforms Peter into a powerhouse. Sometimes, God's words are powerful. All God has to do is speak a word to change your name, to change who you are. That is pretty powerful. Our words are powerful too. And so when pennies drop and we get revelation, and in the midst of our struggles, in the midst of our embarrassment, when we see good things and positive things and moments of revelation from God, our responsibility is to speak those out and see God work with them, change us and empower us and transform us for great and powerful things. The next one up, please. In Romans 4:17, I don't know this morning whether you even have the faith to believe that that is possible. Whether you believe God can actually speak something into your life that is powerful enough to change you and to change your circumstance. But Romans 4:17, the God who gives life to the dead, the God who raised Lazarus, the God who raised Jesus, and calls things that are not as though they were. If you don't believe that God can do this morning, now, you don't believe in this God. God is a God who can speak things that are not as though they were, and they are. This morning, I believe there's an opportunity for people to experience God speak something over their life that changes something core and deep within us. doesn't just help us in our external situations, but changes something core and deep within us. And I think around that God's transformation happens in our confession. So I want people to feel free during when we have ministry time, and when we sing a worship song, and when we sing a declaration song, to take advantage of that praise to declare something of a revelation of who God is in that, and see God meet you in that place. Do I have another one? So this morning, I don't know whether you're struggling. I don't know whether you're fighting and battling with a situation, but come forward for ministry. I don't know whether you need a revelation of who God sees you as. Come forward this morning. I don't know if there's that point of shame and embarrassment that you need God to speak into. Come forward this morning. And I think without wanting to embarrass anybody, I want to give people the opportunity to experience this for the first time. To experience this God who has the power and the ability and the will to speak something new over your life, to speak life where there's death, and to speak goodness where there's sin and brokenness. And so I don't want to embarrass you, but if that's you this morning, then with every head bowed, just for a moment, please. I want you to feel safe, safe enough to be honest with yourself, to be honest with God. If that's you this morning and you've never experienced this transforming power of God to speak over your life, words of life, and wisdom and identity and wholeness and goodness. If that's you this morning, then I just ask you to raise a hand, and I'd love to pray with you in the ministry time if you want to come forward, or I'll come and talk to you afterwards. So if that's you this morning and you want to make that decision for the first time to experience God's transformation, then I just ask you to raise a hand just quickly and we'll move on. All good. If you're here this morning and you've forgotten, if you're here this morning and you've forgotten that word that God spoke to you, and you're feeling dead, you're feeling like there's no life, that things are dry in the well, and you put the bucket down and you're not bringing up water. God is a God who brings life to the dead. God is a God who raises to life things that are dead. And God is a God who keeps reminding us that you're not Jacob, you're Israel. God is a God that keeps reminding us you're not Jacob, you're Israel. Put that name off and pick up the name that I gave you. If you've forgotten this morning, then as we enter into a time of worship, and I'll just get the band up. As we enter into a time of worship, then know that this space is available and free for you to encounter God. And I don't say that God is just like up to the first row and then not back there. I'm just saying that when we make the stand, when we have that revelation that God wants something from us, that God needs us to make a step forward, and then we do that, we unlock something in heaven, we unlock something in ourselves to receive what God has to offer. And so I want you to know that the space is open and available for you to come forward and encounter God. And we'll have people to pray with you, to seek God for you, to seek God for a word to speak over your life that changes and transforms whatever situation you've brought in this morning. Praise you, God.
Let's stand to our feet.